Chapter 25. Wine. "What terrible news," Consort Gyokyo said, her face darkening. Standing before her, Jinchi's heavenly countenance was likewise troubled. "I guess some bigwig is dead." Mao was there too, but she was simply present, feeling none of the emotion of the moment. It might have seemed cold, but she wasn't sentimental enough to muster any sympathy for someone whose name she had never heard and whose face she had never seen. The deceased had been more than 50 years of age anyway, and the cause of death was drinking too much. You reap what you sow. That was all there was to it. Or it should have been. Even after completing her food-tasting duties, Mao couldn't leave the room. Jinchi had apparently sent Hongyang on some kind of errand, and as a consequence, Mao had to stay instead. Even a eunuch couldn't be alone with a royal consort. A lady-in-waiting had to be present. The salient point was that Jinchi had charged Hongyang, and not her minion Mao, with the task. And that means he's plotting something, Mao thought. And she was right. "Do you think the cause of death was truly too much wine?" Jinchi inquired, and his lovely gaze was focused not on the consort, but just over her shoulder. In other words, on Mao. There were a number of ways to die of drink. Even Mao, who enjoyed her alcohol, understood it became a poison if one drank too much. Any medicine did if the dosage was too large. Chronic drinking could induce dysfunction of the liver. Too much at one time could cause death on the spot. In this case, it was the latter, an overabundance of drink at a party among compatriots. Allegedly, the victim had partaken liberally from a generous jug. "That certainly would kill you," Mao remarked flippantly, as they came to the guardhouse by the main gate. It was the same place she had met Lihaku. Still a simple room with only the barest furnishings, but today tea and snacks were provided and a brazier was lit to ward off the cold. "But it was half as much as usual," Jinchi said. Half as much wine as usual, presumably. Gaoshun took something from a serving girl who appeared from outside the rear palace. The girl said nothing, only bowed her head and withdrew. "Frankly, I can't bring myself to believe he died of drink," Jinchi said. "Not Konan." Konan was the name of the dead man. He had been a splendid warrior who drank wine by the jugful, and from what Jinchi and Gyokyo said, he wasn't a half-bad person either. Gaoshun placed the object he'd received from the serving girl on the table. It was a gourd flask. Gaoshun poured from it into a small drinking cup. "What's this?" Mao asked. "The same wine that was served at the party," Jinchi informed her. "We took it from one of the other jugs that was present. The one Konan was drinking from had been overturned, and all the contents spilled out." "So we'll never know if that jug had poison in it." After all, poison would be the next obvious culprit, if it wasn't the wine proper that had killed him. "Quite right." Jinchi obviously knew how unrealistic his hopes were, bringing Mao this alcohol to examine. The fact that he did so anyway, that he clearly wanted closure on this matter, made her curious. Did he owe the dead man a favor? "He just needs to turn that stupid charm back on," Mao thought. Lately, Jinchi had looked so much more childish to her. She couldn't help it. Honestly, it was easier on her when he huffed and puffed and ordered her around. Now she brought the wine to her lips and lapped at it gently with her tongue. "Hello? What's this?" The wine tasted both sweet and sour at once. It was as if it had started out sweet, and then someone had added a pinch of salt. "It's like cooking wine." "A most unusual flavor," she commented, looking intently at Jinchi. Yes, it was Conan's personal preference. He had quite the sweet tooth. He enjoyed a sweet wine and would only take sweet snacks with it. Jinchi also seemed in a rapture as he described the deceased Conan could be presented with the finest smoked meats or luxurious rock salt, but he wouldn't touch them, according to Jinchi. Way back when, he used to enjoy more savory foods, but then, one day, out of the blue, he completely reversed himself, so much so that almost all his meals became exclusively sweet. The hint of a smile, genuinely spontaneous, it seemed, drifted across Jinchi's face. "Sounds like he was flirting with diabetes," Mao said, unsparingly presenting her opinion. "Don't sully my memories with a bleak reality, if you please," Jinchi said ruefully. "So a man who likes savory foods suddenly prefers sweet ones instead," Mao thought as she drained her cup and poured more alcohol from the gourd. She drank it down and repeated the process. Jinchi and Gaoshun were watching her closely, but she ignored them. When the gourd was about half empty, she finally spoke. "The snack served with the alcohol at this party. Was there salt involved?" "Yes. Rock salt, mooncakes, and cured meats were served. Shall we prepare some of the same for you?" "No, thank you. I'll be done drinking this stuff by the time it's ready." "If they were going to offer me snacks, I wish they'd done it sooner." A good salty meat would have complemented the wine perfectly. That's not exactly what I was thinking, Jinchi said, annoyed. Mao Mao poured herself more wine. She paid no heed to Jinchi's transparent disbelief that she was going to resume drinking. The chance for a tipple was such a rare one, outside the occasional mouthful she tasted for poison, and she was going to take advantage of it. Mao Mao drank the gourd dry, to the last drop. She was tempted to let out a big, boozy whoop of satisfaction, but considering the presence of nobility, decided to refrain. Do you have the actual jug Master Conan was drinking from? Yes, although it's in pieces. That's fine. Let me see it. Oh, also, there's something I'd like you to check into for me, Mao Mao informed them. The next day, Jinchi summoned Mao Mao once again. They came to the same room as before. Jinchi's customary place of business seemed to be the office of the matron of the serving woman. But her quarters had been quite busy recently, with women coming and going. The offices of the other two service divisions were much the same. Maybe it had something to do with the approaching end of the year. I knew it, Mao Mao thought as she reviewed the papers summarizing the results of the investigation she'd requested. She looked at the shard of pottery that had likewise been brought to her, where it sat on the wrapping cloth that had been used to transport it. There were whitish grains stuck to it. She picked up the shard and licked it. Are you sure it's safe to be doing that? Jinchi reached out as if he might stop her, but Mao Mao shook her head. It's not poisonous. There's not enough on it for that. Her words sounded portentous, but clearly puzzled Jinchi and Gaoxuan. Mao Mao went over to the brazier with a paper wrapper that held the report and started it burning. Then she held the shard on the jug near the flame. The color of the fire changed. Salt, Jinchi asked, peering at the flames. He had evidently learned his lesson from the last time she'd shown him this trick. That's right. Apparently there was so much of it in this jug that even after the liquid evaporated, grains of it remained. There had been salt in the wine Mao Mao had tasted as well. Not something added during the production process, but more like the sort of stuff that might be served as a snack. It had simply been thrown into the wine. If the attendees at the party generally preferred more savory flavors, then wine that was too sweet wouldn't be to their liking. Everyone knew how you could dust salt around the rim of a cup, but to have put the stuff directly into the wine, someone must have been either very drunk or a complete culinary ignoramus. A pinch of salt was one thing and would have been fine, but the jug Conan had drunk from had contained copious amounts. Salt is essential to human survival, but too much of it is toxic, Mao Mao said. In that respect, it was like wine. Too much at once could be fatal. When she considered the amount of wine Conan had drunk and the quantity of salt dissolved in it, it seemed a possible cause of death. But that doesn't make any sense, Jinchi said. No one could fail to notice they were drinking something salty. I believe at least one person could. Mao Mao turned the report toward them. It contained details of Conan's personal habits. You told me, Master Jinchi, that one day Master Conan spontaneously went from preferring salty foods to preferring sweet ones, yes? Yes, that's right, Jinchi said. Wait, you can't mean... Yes, I think perhaps he stopped tasting saltiness. This man Conan had been a capable bureaucrat, diligent and dedicated to his work. His self-control, bordering on stoicism, was evident even from the somewhat superficial report. After the deaths of his wife and child in a plague some years ago, it said he had lived for his work. Wine and sweet treats were his only pleasures. There are some illnesses that can rob a person of the sense of taste. They're said to be caused by imbalances in diet, or sometimes stress. The more straight-laced a person was, the more repressed their spirit could become, and the burden created by that condition could lead to an illness. All right, who put the salt in the wine, then? Mao Mao cocked her head. It's not my job to figure that out. Armed with the facts that the other jugs had been salted as well, and that Conan was a very serious person, she suspected Jinchi could work out the rest. Not everyone liked a diligent worker. They might decide to play a little prank on him while he was drunk. And when they saw he hadn't even noticed their joke, they might decide to lean into it until he did. Sometimes the alcohol takes over, so to speak. But would the perpetrators ever have expected this result? Cowards, running away like they did. Mao Mao had pulled up short of spelling it out, although she could have. She was no more eager than anyone else to be the proximate cause of somebody's brutal punishment. Even though with all the clues she'd given Jinchi, it was as good as if she told him herself. Jinchi said something to Gaoxuan, who subsequently left the room. Jinchi gazed after him for a moment. Careful observation revealed a small, tasseled ornament mounted with an obsidian on his belt. Is that a mourning emblem? And was it deliberate that he had made it so inconspicuous? My apologies. I appreciate your help, Jinchi said, turning that transcendent smile on her. Not at all. Mao Mao was keenly curious what the connection had been between Jinxi and Conan, but she held herself back from prying. If it turned out to be something indecent, I might be sorry I asked. After all, one could never be certain who was related to whom and in what way. Instead, she tried a less loaded question. Was he really such an outstanding person? Indeed. He was quite good to me once, when I was small. Jinxi didn't elaborate, but closed his eyes. He seemed to be thinking back into the distant past, and it made him look just like an ordinary young man. It was an effect Mao Mao rarely saw from his preternaturally beautiful face. Huh, I guess he's human after all. It was too easy, with Jinxi's unearthly beauty, to forget that he was born of woman just like anyone else. It might have been easier to believe sometimes that he was a 1,000-year-old spirit of a peach. Of late, Mao Mao had increasingly found herself oddly unsure how to feel about this man, Jinxi. After he had stood silently for some moments, Jinxi seemed to recall something. He reached under the table and produced an object. A gourd? Mao Mao asked. He had come up with a gourd of substantial size. She could hear a splishing sound from whatever was inside it. Not the stuff from yesterday, though, he said. Then he handed the gourd to Mao Mao. It's yours, with my thanks. She pulled out the stopper and caught the rich aroma of spirits. Ah! Just try to drink it discreetly. Thank you very much, Mao Mao said with uncommon earnestness. So he does know how to be thoughtful when he wants to be. Shortly thereafter, she was confronted with a saccharine face. She glanced at it reflexively. Yes, it was still the same eunuch. I can't say you look very grateful at the moment, Jinxi said. Is that so, sir? Well, perhaps you should worry less about my expression and more about the work you have to do now. For some reason, she thought she saw a tremor run through Jinxi, so she was right. He had shirked his business to come talk to her. It's one thing to have too much time on your hands, but to actively ignore your job? Perhaps you should go take care of it before the tasks pile up too much. Mao Mao conveniently ignored the fact that she hardly did any work herself. Jinxi blinked, and for a second he looked pained, but then a thought seemed to occur to him. A nasty, mischievous grin came across his face. Oh, I'm working quite diligently, he said. In what way, sir? Jinxi stroked his chin thoughtfully. One of the legal proposals that came across my desk suggested that in order to keep young people from drowning themselves in drink, there should be an age limit on the drinking of wine. Mao Mao looked at him, open-mouthed. It recommended drinking be forbidden before 21 years of age. His grin got even nastier. Master Jinxi, I beseech you not to pass such a law. I'm afraid it's not up to me alone, he said, his smile like a blossoming flower as he observed the misery on Mao Mao's face. Her lip curled down. She did the only thing she could do, and looked at him like an overturned beetle.